I've taken some really bad advice. I've gotten into programs that didn't work for me for what I was doing because I was told this is a good idea. I got married because I was told it was a good idea. I did all kinds of things thinking that it was a good idea, and then the results didn't show up that way. So I got to ask you, who here has ever taken bad advice and then realized only after they lost all their money? After they got into a program that didn't work, after they found out that their relationship is now on the rocks because they took that advice. The funny thing is, the advice wasn't from anybody outside of me. It was my own bad advice. And what I found through the years that I've been doing this is we all have a tendency to take our own bad advice, don't we? We all tend to talk ourselves into things that don't really work for us. Why do we do that? Why do we end up talking ourselves into bad situations? Why do we find ourselves doing things that don't really work for us? What's going on there? And really, when we really look at this, what is it that we're doing that makes it hard for us to succeed? Yeah, a lot of people talk about self-sabotage. A lot of people talk about getting ourselves in trouble and doing all of these things, but what's going on? What makes self-improvement and success so hard for us? Well, that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about our own bad advice and how we fall into traps. And I don't necessarily like to say that we self-sabotage, but you can see it that way sometimes because when we're doing things to move ourselves forward, we do tend to have performance blocks. We do tend to throw some trash in our track. One of the things that we talk about in generator coaching is really removing the trash from the track so you can move on the bullet train action towards success. But what happens when we're not actually moving towards success the way we want to? Well, most of the time, we do have some input that doesn't work for us. We do have people talk about things that don't work for us. But a lot of times, the things that they're saying are good advice, and we change it as we're talking to them. Why does this happen? Well, when you read my book, I talk all about this stuff. My book is called Quit Taking Your Own Bad Advice: How to Stop Overthinking and Start Following the Brilliance of Others. And in it, I talk about, first off, why self-improvement is so hard. It's because we are in a vacuum in our own mind. And most of us really love the way we think about things. What I talk about, it's kind of funny, but we've made it this far in our lives. So why would we stop listening to ourselves now? We've kept us alive. And we have this little voice inside our head that tells us about what might happen, what could happen, what will happen, what won't happen. And all of it is designed to protect ourselves. Every bit of it is designed to keep us safe from what might happen. The problem is not that we're telling ourselves these things are happening. The problem is we don't actually have facts. We have a bunch of conjecture that we talk about a lot, that we think about a lot. And we go and we pretend that we went to Amazon and we bought a crystal ball and we put this thing together and we turn it on and we start telling the future of what might happen. And what I talk about is I talk about this, especially with my clients. I talk about a lot that we have this lie machine. And this lie machine, it basically straps on our head right here. And it goes all the way up right here like this. And it just spits out random possibilities of what might happen. And if we don't have a good network, if we don't have good coaches, if we don't have a good team, we just listen to ourselves. And we listen over and over and over to what might happen. And so this lie machine that's strapped to our forehead gives us all kinds of what people are thinking, talks about what might happen, talks about what's not going to work. And how this shows up in our life is we hesitate, we procrastinate. We start listening to our head talk about all of these permutations of what might happen, and then what might happen, then what might happen, then what might happen. And then, oh my God, we can't even cross a bridge. We spend all of this time trying to cross bridges before we get to them, thinking about what might happen, thinking about how this stuff is going to happen, thinking about what will work, won't work. And we actually then tell ourselves another little story that looks like this or sounds like this. I'm strategizing. I'm coming up with the perfect strategy to move forward fast as I don't do anything, as I think more about what might happen to me, as I think about who is going to screw me over, because our lie machine is all about that protection. It's looking for all of the danger, all of the scary stuff that might happen. On the other side of this, it shows up as giving ourselves bad advice that we actually take. So we'll go and get into something that doesn't work for us. You know what? I could buy that and it's going to work really well. It didn't work for anybody else, but it's going to work for me. Or we'll end up getting in the relationship because she's cute or he's cute. They're really nice to me that one time. I can't leave him because someday he's going to change and I don't want to miss out. I put a lot of time into that. We tell ourselves all of these different stories and we lock ourselves into a pattern, and our head tells us that we're actually doing new thinking. We're actually coming up with new ideas. But if you look back, it's over and over and over, very, very similar to the old ideas that we had. The lie machine, it's amazing how it works. When I was working in a prison system, I was a correctional psychologist for a number of years. And when I was working in the prison system, we had a lot of kids doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. I say kids, they were 19, 18, 19, 20. And they were hoping to get out, but they keep fighting. They keep getting themselves more time. They keep getting themselves stuck in things because they were listening to their own bad advice. You know what? All I need to do is make it for 3 months without fighting. But I can't let that guy make me look bad. So I go get in a fight. And then they end up with more time, or they end up with more problems with their time they're doing. When I was working with businesses, when I moved from prison and I started working with businesses, I had this one client who decided that he thought it would be a good idea to put more restrictions on his employees in the phone call making thing, because he wanted people to make more and more phone calls and he wanted to up their call logs. And he thought that would make more numbers. But what he did is he actually ran off 2 or 3 of his high performers because they felt too restricted. But it was a good idea for him at the time. He came to me saying, everybody's leaving me. Everybody's arguing with me. Everybody's having problems with me. And it was because he was listening to his filter. He was listening to that lie machine that starts on his shoulders and goes up. The lie machine said, if you don't watch these people really good, they're not going to perform the way you want. And so he got more and more constricting. And then they left. And so then he didn't have them making any phone calls. And so what's going on with us that we do that? He's not the only one, is he? We all do this, don't we? We all have these good ideas and we continue to think about how to move forward. And what we end up doing is we put a bunch of trash on our track on the way to success. And so when we're looking at what's happening, why is this happening? Well, the way I think about it is there's a lot of noise in the world. There's a lot of noise. We have Facebook, we have in the news, we have Instagram, we have TikTok now, we have Snapchat, all of these different social media aspects, and everybody's telling us all kinds of different things. And so we're not sure of who to listen to or what to listen to. So then we decide to listen to ourselves. And at first, it sounds like a good idea, mostly because we told ourselves to. And so we listen to ourselves talking about what we think we should be doing, but we're not necessarily making good choices. We're just in a loop, like I said before. And the interesting thing about this loop is it's informed by all the noise in the world. And so we're easily influenced by all of these media outlets. We're easily influenced by all of our friends that think this is a good idea or that's a good idea. The one thing that we tend not to do is we tend not to go find people who have been successful before.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
I know I was in that problem for a long time. I had two things that I used to tell myself. One, I'm a doctor, so I know a lot. The other is those people want my money. And so I listened to those ideas. And so I'd stop actually going and seeking advice from people who wanted my money. They didn't want my money. They want to be paid for what they knew. And I thought that I knew a lot because I went to school and I got a doctorate. Well, that's great for all the information that I learned. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from people who knew better than me. But at some point, after I graduated with my doctorate in psychology, I thought that I knew enough. And so then that information that I learned in psychology was great enough to get me things that I didn't know about. I listened to myself again. And I didn't even know I did it. But my head made sense to me when it told me that I got a lot of information that was really good at the school and I paid a lot of money for it. So I'm pretty good. Although I was going into sales, I was going into marketing, I was going into other ways to do things. I was going into strategy. I didn't know everything that I needed to for those business areas. I didn't know everything about building a business, but of action, instead of moving towards my success very quickly, I jumped off the train and I started trudging up a hill, trying to do it myself, trying to figure this stuff out. And you know what? I built a couple pretty successful businesses all on my own. Problem was, I was really lonely, and I didn't know what I was doing when I got into situations I hadn't been in before. And at the point that it was really frustrating for me, and I was starting to feel really inferior, and I was starting to feel really disappointed with where I was at, I decided I was going to go get somebody to help me with that part of my business. And I started getting some coaching. And as I started realizing that what was going on for me is what was going on for a lot of my clients that came to see me in the psychology world. Is I was listening to my own self. And I didn't know it because, well, I told myself it was a good idea. Do you see the trap? Can you get how that's a trap that we all fall into? That this idea that when we're thinking, we're actually talking to ourselves, and we're talking ourselves out of moving forward and thinking and hesitating and running through all the different scenarios. And we're not taking the right action because we've gotten in a think trap. And the thinking trap is all about overthinking instead of action. So how come this happens? Why does this happen? It's because we have a filtration system. And the filtration system, if you think about it, is kind of like a water system that, the idea goes through, the water goes through and it cleans it. But the problem is that our filtration system doesn't work kind of like a charcoal filter. It works more like cutting out all of the real information, and it puts in our patterned ideas of what might happen from what we've been through before. And so it just makes what's new look like what's old. And so our filter really just makes everything look like something that we've experienced before. Has anybody here ever heard of the idea of stereotype? That's what our filter does. It creates little tiny stereotypes, or another word I use is biases, unconscious biases. And so our mind takes all the information in and then puts it through the stereotype filter or the bias filter. And then we go, you know what? This is kind of like that. So this is what I need to do. And we really start to really think about how it is like it. And that's where our filtration system messes up. And we start protecting ourselves based on how we feel, based on our emotions, rather than our thinking. And then what happens is our thinking comes out with, I knew it. I was right. I knew that was going to happen. I was afraid that was going to happen. I thought that might happen. I didn't know that was going to happen. And all of those different things that come out when we see the results of what we created after we filtered it with our own process, we come out with, that's not what I wanted. That's not the answer I wanted. This isn't going to work. And then what happens is we have some great idea for a business. We try it out for a little while. We filter everything through our biases. We filter everything through our fears. We trigger the crap out of ourselves, and we're on the roller coaster all over the place, going nowhere, thinking that we're thinking really clearly. We think we're on the bullet train, but right next to it is the amusement park roller coaster of emotion, and it's running us up and down all around everywhere. And we take no action that moves us forward, but we get really discouraged, don't we? We get really frustrated, don't we? And we start to feel inferior, like we don't know what we're doing. And some of us quit. And some of us go and try harder. Well, what I did with my practice, what I did with my business, is I went and hired a coach who could teach me how to sell, who could teach me about marketing and my message and how I would get it out there. Teach me how to write a book. Teach me how I would go and move forward with what I wanted to move forward with. And he started helping me move some of the trash off the track. Now, he didn't call it that. That's what I was calling it. I realized that I had trash on my track and there was no one responsible for putting it there besides me. I sat there and thought about how I kept putting stuff in my way when I was trying to get success. And so what I realized is I needed somebody outside me, whether it was a board of directors, whether it was a confidant, whether it was somebody who knew how to do it. I needed the brilliance of others in order to move forward. And so how do we get to that point? Well, unfortunately, many of us have to really dig a hole until we're so far deep in it, we can't seem to get out ourselves. Then we have to raise our hand and go, I need help. I need help to get out of here. Some of us have seen it enough and have enough self-awareness to be able to go like, I'm going the wrong way. I am not going where I want. And I talked about KPIs last week. If you do KPIs, it's a very good way to find yourself a way to see that you're moving down the wrong track. Because if you're not hitting your numbers, if you're not hitting your key performance indicators, you can see that you're on the wrong track and you probably listen to some bad advice. And most of my bad advice usually comes from me. I could be talking to Morrow. I could be talking to Bruce, and they could tell me something. Then I filter it through my bias filter without knowing it. And I think I'm doing what they say. I think I'm doing what my coach says. I think I'm doing what my board of directors say. I'm saying, you told me to do this. No, like, that's not what I said. Oh, crap. Realize that I did it. And so we need to fix a filter. We need to fix that filter. We need to fix that bias filter. How do we do that? How do we go about fixing a bias filter when we don't really realize it's there? How do we go about doing that? Well, I talk about that in my book a little bit. And how I talk about our number one goal is a little bit different from a lot of the self-help and a lot of the different positive psychology and all of those things, the performance people. I talk about we got to get to our emotions, but we don't got to go and examine our years when we were a child. We don't got to go and figure out what happened to us when we got left out of something. What we got to do is we got to identify the emotions that got triggered and see the story that goes along with it. And so when I feel embarrassed, there's a story that goes along with it. When I feel inferior, there's a story that goes along with it. When I feel attacked, there's a story that goes along with it. So when I can identify those emotions, like powerless, When I feel powerless, there's a story goes along with it. I can have a story of me overcoming is I'm not going to let that beat me. And I just beat my head in the wall trying to make it work. Or I can tell myself a story that I'm powerless and, well, I just no use. I quit. And then I'm a victim. Or I can tell myself I'm powerless and that's why I'm having problems so I can ask for help. That's the healthy way. But we don't necessarily know how to move forward. We don't know how to do that until we can identify our emotions that get triggered, because our emotions that get triggered tell us the stories. It makes our what I call ego, and there are many people that talk about the ego, but for me, the only thing that happens is the ego sits there and tells me stories about what might happen. The way I explain it is the ego is a little imposter pretending to be us. And he's sitting in like a little chest right in front of us. And he's got a little slit that he looks through the chest. And he sits there and fills up these water balloons, getting us heavier and heavier and heavier. And those water balloons are our emotions. And so he's filling these up, telling us all the bad things that are going to happen. We get heavier and heavier and heavier, and it gets harder and harder and harder to actually move forward because we're carrying all this stuff around. And so what we really need to do to fix the filter is we need to open that chest up. We need to pull these emotions out, look at them, and let them go. As we do, we get lighter and lighter and lighter. We get stronger and taller, and we become much more able to take care of our things because we're identifying our emotions and we actually are talking about them with a trusted friend, advisor, board member, coach, these people who are wanting to see us succeed. The only way to fix our filter is to identify those emotions that are triggered. When we can identify them, it's like being in a minefield, but all of the mines have flags so you can see them. And then we dig around, pick it up, move it out of the way, and then we can move forward on the bullet train of action. The problem is we all tend to listen to ourselves in that biased state, and we just run right through the thing and keep blowing up, trash getting on track, slowing us down, hesitating, not moving forward. So when we start fixing the filter, when we start identifying the emotions, what starts to happen is we start to have little wins here and there. We start to actually see how we're making movement forward. We start to begin to trust ourselves. Now, this is a very good thing because when we're trusting ourselves, we're moving forward. We're doing what we need to do. We're taking care of business. The problem is we actually start listening to ourselves again. And we start going, you know what? Here's the thing. I needed a coach for a little bit. I needed to talk to the board a little bit, but I think I got it now. Because that little guy in the chest, he had to shut the door, and we started filling our emotions up, and we started worrying about maybe doing it wrong or worrying about what they think. Or we started telling ourselves, Lie Machine tells us they think that you don't know what you're doing, so you need to prove you do. And so then we start taking action ourselves again, instead of relying on the brilliance of others, instead of connecting with the brilliance of others, instead of talking to the others who have some brilliance. And we close ourselves in that tape loop again, and we start just making mistakes again. But we don't know it because that bias is still there. We don't ever remove the bias. It's kind of like you turn on a light so you can see your way around in a house with all kinds of furniture. Well, once you stop asking for help and asking for that outside perspective, it's like you turned off the light. You didn't remove the furniture, you just turned off the light. So you run into all the furniture again. You run into all of the problems. And so asking for help with the brilliance of others. And I talked about it like that because the brilliance of others is the light in our lives to help us see the blind spots. And so learning from the brilliance of others, connecting to the brilliance of others is that thing that we do so that we can continue to move forward. Because no matter what happens, when we're a closed loop, the light starts to close in and we can't see as well. And we start listening to ourselves again. And as we listen to ourselves, the filter turns on, the biases turn on, And then we believe that we're right because we told ourselves we are. And so we start to trust ourselves. And sometimes trusting ourselves is a good thing. When we start to create a track record of we're moving forward and we're making headway and we're starting to earn the money we're wanting, we're starting to have the relationships that we want to have, we're starting to have the intimate relationships and the social relationships, and we're starting to move forward in the way that's working for us, we start to be excited about that. But those select few who turn off the light and decide to do it all by themselves fall back in the hole. The people who succeed, the people who are really successful, continue to leave the light on, continue to work with the brilliance of others, continue to have those trusted friends. And I call them closed-mouth trusted friends. Closed mouth because they're not talking about what you're doing outside of the confidence, but also closed mouth because they listen. We need people in our lives that listen. Not just a little bit, but they listen to the intent of what we want. They listen to the plan that we want. They listen to our mistakes as well as where we want to go and what's working. And they listen to these different things and they help us put together a plan to move forward. And that's where we start to really get good at moving forward, leaving the light on, trusting the brilliance of others, working in our lives. And what that looks like is a little successes. We start to have good conversations with people. We start to make deals that work for us. We start to really think about what our actions are, not in a way of like trying to tell a future, but thinking, and I talked about this a few weeks ago, is exploring, experimenting, and experiencing. And so we start to experience things, and then we take a chance and we experiment, and then we explore what happened. We identify what worked and what didn't, but we don't do it alone. We do it with that brilliance of another person helping us to go, is this where we wanted to go, or is this not where we want to go? What can we change to have a better result? And this is all what happens when we stop relying on our own bad information and our biases, and we start relying on the people that are around us. See, the funny thing is trust. Everybody talks about trust. I think talking about trust is good, but we also got to talk about distrust. And so one of the things on the track that we want to remove is the distrust of others outside of ourselves. Because if we don't remove the distrust, it's hard to build any foundation of trust. And so we got to look at what's going on in our head, that our head is telling us these lies that we can't trust. And then we have to do the little experiments of saying, hey, I got this thing and I want to run it by you. I've got this situation where I stand to have a really good situation, a really good deal, but I want to run it by you. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't tell about the deal because somebody might steal it. Or I can't tell you about my IP because somebody's going to steal it. Well, if we don't trust, or if we don't remove the distrust and start giving just a little bit to other people, we can't see that they're going to be for us. They're going to be there for us when we trust. And when we act as if and look at what their life is doing and look at where they are. And Bruce and I talk about integrity. Both of us have had several discussions about integrity. And the idea is look to see what their life is doing. What are they doing in their business? What are they doing in their relationships? What are they doing in their private lives? Are they doing what they say they're going to do? That's a level of integrity that we want to look at. We want to focus on, are they walking their talk, is what I call it. And if they're walking their talk, then although I have some distrust, I'll give them a chance. I'll give them a chance to hear my crazy idea and see what they think of it. And then if they give me some suggestions that might move me forward, I take action on those ideas, not the way I thought about them, but the way they said. Word for word, follow directions. This world is all about doing it my own way. Well, doing it our own way doesn't get us as far as following suggested instruction from people who've been there before. One of the ideas that the NLP talks about, and NLP is something that all of us coaches know a little bit about. Emmylou knows a little bit about it. She teaches a little bit about it. Doug knows a lot about it, teaches a lot about it. And a few of the other coaches know very, very good amount of information around NLP. And one of the things, presuppositions it talks about is modeling. Find models who have done it and follow what they do. Now, I take it a step further, and I don't necessarily find a model and do what they do. I find a model and ask them what they did that I'm not seeing. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff we can see, like a puzzle in a puzzle box. You see the picture, but you don't know what went into finding all the pieces and putting them together right. So when I find somebody who's doing it right, I go and ask for their help. But I don't just ask for their help and, hey, can you make my picture look like the picture that I think I have? I say, how do I get this? And then I follow the instructions to the letter. And then when it doesn't work out, I go back to them and I say, you know what? It didn't work. I must have done something wrong. I must have misinterpreted what you said. So can you help me walk through this in a way that I'm doing it the way you said, and this time I didn't get in my way, clearing the track and doing it exactly like the other person told me. This is how we start to move forward and become high performers. To remove the performance blocks which come from inside our own mind. Now, there's bad information all over the place. There's people that make mistakes, and there's people that tell us bad information. But if we're continuing to not get results, it's time to stop blaming all of those other people, isn't it? It's time to really think about how you're misinterpreting the information or putting it into action in a way that wasn't the suggestion, although you thought it was. That's what coaching is all about. That's what consultants do, is really walk in and they start helping people put the puzzle together in the right way, piece by piece, really examining what's working and what's not, removing out what's not working and putting in systems, processes, and emotional processes, thought processes that really move you forward fast. And so that's what it's all about, to stop taking your own bad advice. So what happens when you're actually moving forward and you're starting to trust yourself? You're learning to trust yourself and you're learning to trust the brilliance of others. Well, then we want to look at, okay, so what am I doing? Am I taking action, or am I telling myself I'm getting ready to take action? Am I telling myself that I'm going to take action as soon as this, and this happen? Well, that's another trap. The trap is getting ready to get ready. And we all tend to get ready a lot of times. We start thinking that we've done it. We start thinking that we have a good plan. And now I'm going to get ready to get ready. You know what? I'm going to do this stuff after I do this and this and this. And then we put off actually taking the action that the brilliance of others has been given to us. So my coach tells me, you got to put a program together. And so I say, okay, I'm putting a program together. I am doing it right now, tomorrow. I am doing it later. Right now, I'm working on this nice new logo. And then when I get that done, then I'm going to put my program together because it looks right. And so we put all of these little blocks in and we don't realize we did it again. We did it again. We started listening to our own advice. And now instead of making the mistakes and not taking action because we're afraid of mistakes or we're overthinking, now we're not taking action because we're getting ready to get ready. And we didn't even know we did it because we're telling ourselves we're taking action. This is a pervasive thing that our head does to us. And man, it drives me nuts watching myself do it, watching my partners do it, watching my clients do it. Really drives me nuts when I have people who are getting ready to actually take action to get some coaching. Because I know that people like Bruce and people like myself and people like Christine, my partner, and all of the other coaches here have tons of suspects, which are prospects that aren't sure yet. They aren't sure. They're getting ready to actually take action. And we want to see the success in those people who come to us and that we have discussions with. And there's people that I offer to coach that say, you know what, I'm just not ready yet. I need to get this, and then I need to get this, and I need to get this. And then I see them 3 months later, and they still have the three things that they said that they couldn't do. Oh, I have to get my money right. Oh, I have to get my timing right. Oh, I have to make sure that my house looks good before I start taking action. Well, none of that matters. None of it matters if you're not going to take action. Because the reality is action is on the other side of yes. We have to say yes, but yes only comes after we stop listening to us and we start taking advice from other people who we've seen have the results that we're looking for, that have the answers we're looking for. And sometimes we can't see that they have the answers because we're listening to ourselves way too much. And so we have to actually experiment a little bit. We have to take action, little steps at a time. Inch by inch, it's a cinch is something that Bruce says. I say step by step, one step at a time, and we start to move down the line. We can make all these rhymes we want. We love them. They actually help us think a lot. But the funny thing is it doesn't matter if you rhyme or not. If you're taking one step at a time, moving towards your goal, you can course correct. I have a partner who does sales funnels. And one of the things he said is you got to put the whole sales funnel together, and then you got to take the kinks. It's kind of like a hose. When you put a sales funnel together in the very beginning, it's like a hose with a bunch of kinks. And then each part of the funnel is a kink in the hose, and you work on it until it starts to flow free. That's how we need to do the same thing with taking action. We need to follow the directions. And if it's kinked up, we go, okay, where did I make the mistake? Not where did you make the mistake? Not where did you mess up when you told me to do this, but where did I mess up in following the suggestions? And then we look at that and we take action again in a little experiment, exploring and experiencing what happens, exploring what worked, what didn't work, experiencing the emotions and talking about those. And then we get clear and movement forward. We just start moving forward. As we move forward, trusting in that brilliance of others, committing to action. The commitment to action is where it's at. Because when we start committing to action, we start to really move forward fast. We start to say yes to everything and then do the little experiments. And when we do the experiments, we start to really understand what works and what doesn't. We're getting out of the lie machine into the real world. And in this real world, we can see what's working and what's not. One of the things that Christine and I love to do in our business is about 2 or 3 months after we start working with people, we actually schedule a call to ask them, okay, we've been working for a few months together. We get a feel for each other. What do you see that's been happening in our relationship that's working for you? What's not working for you? What do you like most about what's going on? Then we ask, are you getting everything you were looking for? What could we do better? Because the funny thing is even being the helper of the businesses, even being the coach, we still tend to take our own bad advice sometimes and tell ourselves that we're doing everything great. We can even turn on our clients a little bit. This is a secret, but we do. Because we are listening to our own head. And so I remove that problem by asking my client, are you getting everything you're looking for? Are you getting what you signed up for? Because the reality is, when I'm not listening to my head, I want progress for my clients. I want success for them. I want them to get on the bullet train of action. And so we built into our program these questions about how are we doing? How are you doing? What do you want changed? What do you want more of? What's not working for you? And then we have a very, very lively, open conversation about that so we can make sure that you're still on the bullet train of action. It's the only thing that I have found moves me forward. And I've had a few coaches. I've had a number of coaches. And the coaches that always ask me those questions, I put it in my memory bank, the stories. But I put it in memory bank to remember that when they ask me that, I can be honest with them about what's working for me and what's not. And then we can tease out, am I doing it the way they said, or did I put my own twist on it? Did you do it the way you were told, or you put your own twist on it? We can see and understand and have a conversation around that to actually move forward and get rid of those little pieces of the lie machine involved in my mind, involved in your mind. We can get very, very clear, very, very clear about what's working and what's not. And then we can put the plan together to continue moving forward fast, step by step, one thing at a time, with the experiment as we explore and as we experience. We explore what's working, what's not, and we experience the results that happen. And then we go, okay, what do we like? What do we not like? What do we want more of? What do we want less of? What's going to move us forward faster? And we just have this continuous conversation. Now, I say that we make a call like about 3 months in when we're working with people. That's on a 6-month relationship. But the funny thing is I actually do that every time I ever talk to my clients, because we start out with, okay, where are you at? Where are you at from the last time we talked? What's working? What do you want to work on? How do you want to work on it? What's not working for you? And so we continue to have these conversations. And these are the conversations that I find move me forward the fastest, move my clients forward the fastest, move my relationships forward the fastest. It makes everything work better when we're asking these questions, because what we're really doing is we're turning the light on. We're being able to see inside. We're having this awareness of what's working in our business, in our relationships, in our life. We're able to see what we're stepping into. We're able to see the little flags in the minds. We're able to see where things aren't working and where we can work better. And that's what growth is all about. That's what building a business is all about. And so it's about making those decisions. Are we going to be turning the lights on? Are we going to be really looking at what we want to do? Or are we going to get ourselves stuck in our head, stuck in that idea of, let me hesitate a little bit. Let me listen to my head a little bit. Let me think about that a little bit. Let me procrastinate. You know what? If I put this off, the answer will magically come. Answers don't magically come. Answers come through making a decision, taking action, seeing the result, and then making an adjustment in what you're doing. Answers come with the action. So many people I see, and this is kind of where I started, in fact, hesitate because they're using that crystal ball, trying to figure out what might happen, trying to cross the bridge before they get to it, instead of taking action on a decision. And I want everybody to think about it. I know this is true, but I want you to think about this truth. If you haven't taken action on it, have you really made the decision? Because I've never seen somebody make a decision and then not do something. I went to school for psychology, and it turned out that I was a cook in a restaurant when this happened, but my head chef was about to promote me to being a sous chef, which is basically learning how to be a manager in the back of the house. And so you got a lot more responsibility, and it's like a management position. It's my time. And he's like, so what do you want to do? And I go, I think I want to go to school. And I'm looking around going, who the hell just said that? And the funny thing is it was me. I just didn't know it because, well, I had my own bad advice going on, and like telling him you want to move up in the company. And then the truth came out of my mouth and I was surprised. And this truth is I wanted to go to school. That was a decision I made, but I had no idea I made the decision. That was about 8.5 years before I got my doctorate. And every day since I said that to my chef, I proved my decision that I wanted to go to school by showing up, by enrolling, by going to the courses, by doing the assignments, by taking the tests, by passing the courses, signing up for new courses, getting jobs in the field that I was doing so I could learn, so I could do the practicums, so I could do the internships. Every action I took proved my decision. But it was only the action I took that proved the decision, not me going, I decided to go to school. I decided to go to school, but I haven't actually signed up or anything like that. I haven't gone and done any classwork, but I decided I was going to, so I feel pretty good about it. That is a hesitation, that is procrastination, and that is a lie to myself. And so the only way we can see that we actually committed to a decision is the action we take. So let me ask you this. Are you taking action? Or are you sitting there hesitating on a decision, overthinking it, listening to your own bad advice, telling yourself that you need another day to think about it, another week to think about it? You need to wait till you hit a certain amount of money before you think about it, before you are ready for it. Are you getting ready to get ready? Are you getting in your own way, putting a bunch of trash on the track? Now, I don't think anybody's sabotaging themselves when they're doing that. They're just taking their own bad advice. It's not their fault. We just don't realize how powerful our little ego is telling us about what might happen or how it's not going to work. But our ego is a super powerful word, super powerful force. I mean, the little word, ego, is super powerful force. I used to talk about when I worked with people in relationships, that little 3-letter word has the power to destroy a 15-letter word called relationships. Destroys everything when we allow our ego to have more power than that balanced, intentional self that comes from identifying our emotions and letting them go, that comes from connecting with other people and talking about what we're afraid of, that comes with talking about how we feel powerless or how we feel inferior and we're not sure what to do. But when we get vulnerable, when we get open to talking about that, we start to become empowered because we invite other people into our lives that have the answers that we desperately want. And when we can follow those instructions and start taking action on those instructions, our whole life changes one little experiment at a time, one little action at a time, with intention, looking at what we're exploring, looking at what we're experiencing as we experiment with what's next. And so I invite every one of you who listens to this to think about how you end up taking your own bad advice. And I know you're doing it right now, going, you know what? I don't have to listen to this. I don't really have to do that. I don't do that. That's not me. We all do that. I know I do. And I've been really focused on not doing that for years, and I still do it. So I know that comes up for us. That comes up for all of us human beings because we have a protection system. Our little ego is a protector. And so how is it playing in your life? How is it getting in the way of you moving forward the way you want to? If you want to talk about that, reach out to us. Join our community. Give me a call. Reach out. Talk to us. We'll help you move forward. We are those experts that are going to help you have the brilliance in your life that helps you understand where you're getting caught up, where you got some trash on your track. We'll help you remove the trash. We'll help you move forward. We'll help you be powerful and moving forward on the bullet train of action. That's what we do at Generator Coaching. We help you get on the bullet train, stay on the bullet train, moving fast, faster and faster as you take each step moving forward towards the success that you're looking for, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your life. We help you move forward faster. We start with business because we believe that when you have the money, when you have a business that's working for you, a lot of things straighten out. And then you can afford to have the life that you want, removing a lot of stress. You have the relationships because business is relationships. I don't know if anybody knew that. I'm pretty sure you did. But business is all about relationships. Nothing happens if you can't talk to somebody and make a deal with them, whether it's employee, a colleague, an employer, a deal, whatever it is. There's somebody on the other side that you have to talk to, have a relationship with, and build a relationship with. And for me, the first way is to remove the distrust, and in its place, trust starts to develop automatically. And then we start moving powerfully, connected to each other, knowing that we're trying to move in the same direction on the bullet train of action. So if you're wanting to get on the bullet train of action, there's Boom Nation. You joined, you're here. That's awesome. Now it's really getting into the material, getting into what you want to do and how you want to move forward fast to build your life the way you want it. That's what the dream was when we put this idea together. When I was asked to come coach, my friend Morrow said, I want to make sure that everybody is able to grow the way they want to, have access to the things they want to, and I want you to be a part of it because I know you get people on the bullet train. So we want to help you. That's what we want to do. So reach out to Morrow, reach out to me, reach out to Bruce. We want to connect you with the most powerful information to move you forward. Getting rid of your own bad advice and taking some of our brilliance that has moved us into the place where we can actually help people grow their businesses and grow their life. That's what we're all about. So thanks for listening. We're super excited. We can't wait to hear from you. You guys have a great night.